you on the Enterprise World YouTube channel. We are honored to feature Kelly Lockwood Primus, a leader who has redefined the landscape of leadership development. As the CEO of Leading Now, Kelly has leveraged her exceptional vision and innovative strategies to empower leaders globally, with a focus on fostering inclusion and diverse organizational cultures. Her career, which is spanning over 25 years, is a testament to her ability to navigate complex challenges and inspire others to reach their full potential. Join us as we delve into Kelly's journey, her leadership philosophy, and her mission to make a lasting impact on the global stage. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So, we'll get started by talking about a bit about your journey. So, if you could just share us about your professional journey and also to becoming one of the most influential leaders in the industry, and also what were some of the key milestones that you've had so far in your career?
So, um, Thank you for asking. I have spent about 25 years working in corporate America and working in a very entrepreneurial world in consumer products. And looking back, right, on that career, what I find most interesting about it is that I consistently selected the organizations that I was going to work with um, because they were run by entrepreneurs and because they were flatter organizations. They didn't have a lot of layers in them. And what I realized is by choosing them, it gave me the opportunity to have more responsibilities in very lean organizations so that anytime there was something new that came up that needed to get done, I put my hand up and said, I'll try it. Can I do that? I'll take that responsibility. And as a result of that, it gave me a bigger view of what the organization was about, and not just my department or my role, but I learned more about the business. And the more I learned about the business, the better business person I became. And so I was able, over the course of my career, to help these organizations really move more rapidly to grow, to expand the business performance. And I spent the majority of my career in the marketing and communications space. So my job was always to get the brand of the organization or of its products in front of consumers. And so the speed to market for products, the ability to gain the attention of consumers and retailers where we sold our goods was the most important thing. But when you look at the backside of that, the operations of the organization and the way in which the team that I led over those different companies, the pivotal roles they played in making sure we made it to market on time and made sure that we were delivering our products on time. And because I was able over those years and the different roles that I had to play, and the different organizations that I worked within and the different places they were in their own development. So one of the last companies I joined, or second to last companies that I joined, had just acquired an enormous company and had to transition this very old brand, 75-year-old company, into this much more modern, unique, and entrepreneurial company. So that was a complete learning opportunity for me to help transition two companies together and do it in a way without losing our step, without making mistakes, without slowing down our ability to go to market. It helps when you, or it helped me when I was able to reach out to the product development folks and understand what they did, and reach out to the engineering and then the manufacturing folks to understand what they needed from my group in order to make sure that we had a really dynamic flow. And it allowed me, because of my ability to understand the business, I ended up getting promoted up to GM and running a business unit of my own. And at the time, I didn't realize why. Like, why me? Why was I picked? What was it I was doing that was allowing me the opportunity to be promoted from director to vice president in a year, and then from vice president to GM in a couple of years after that? And I never, at the time, it wasn't clear to me. Now I know why. Looking back, now that I know what I know about leadership development and the impact that individuals can have on the performance of a business. But at the time, I didn't know that. And so it's a really interesting um, part of why Leading Now is so successful in what we do is that myself and the others that are on the team, we're all business people. And so we understand what it takes to get the business to perform and how important it is to stay focused, right, on the bigger picture, as opposed to getting bogged down on the day to day. And so when we work with organizations and the leaders that they're developing, those organizations, our clients recognize that we've all been there. We've all done that. We've all had the opportunity to work within business and understand the bigger picture. And so my last corporate role, I went into I think it was close to 5-year-old company and small consumer product based, in other words, goods sold to retail, and help them go public in the first year that I was there as head of marketing and communications. And that's an entirely different perspective of what you have to do to take an organization that is small and new and help it gain the awareness that it needs in both the retail sector, the consumer sector, and then also with analysts and the financial sector in order to go public. So there's been some really interesting experiences that I've had that allows me, right, to have a very different perspective on what it takes to build leaders.
Oh,
And then the last thing that I'll say about, that is many of those roles, and they offered me the opportunity to work globally. So I had teams in Hong Kong and Europe and Latin America and so forth that gave me perspectives that I wouldn't necessarily have had I worked for an organization that didn't have a global presence.
oh, that's excellent. And like you have almost more than 2 decades of experiences, but with experiences there comes challenges. So how have you sort of overcome the challenges that you faced in your leadership journey?
So, although I've always had that opportunity, sometimes it was very challenging because I was the only woman in the room. And when you're the only woman in the room, you have to show up differently. At least you did then. Because my career in corporate spanned from the 90s into 2010. And during that time, it was very different than it is now. And so leadership looked very different then. You had to be a lot less about feelings and a lot more about driving the performance of the business. And so being the only woman in the room meant that my behaviors had to be a very certain way in order not to be called out for being a woman. But the other good part about that is that it gave me the opportunity to share a perspective that the rest of the gentlemen in the room didn't have, right? So when you're working in a consumer products world, the consumer 9 times out of 10 is a woman. And yet, if you're in an organization making consumer products that are sold to women and you don't have a woman's perspective in the branding and the marketing and the stories that you tell in order to engage the consumer in the product, then you're not going to be really very good at it, are you? So the challenge was both hard and fun at the same time.
Oh, that's amazing. So, how do you sort of balance your professional responsibilities with your personal life, especially when you're leading leading a role that is so high profile?
So I'm not sure that that's really a question that any CEO can answer, because the reality of it is our role as a CEO is to be about the business. And so you have to very carefully recognize how important that type of role is and the commitment that you have to make to it. Now, does that mean one doesn't take vacation? No. But does it mean that when you're on vacation, you're checking your email first thing in the morning? Of course. But if you're dedicated and you're passionate about what you do and you have a goal for the organization and that's what makes you happy, then that's what you have to focus on.
Oh, that's well said. And those are really some words of wisdom right there. So, you're huge on diversity and inclusion, right? So, what are some of the strategies that you've implemented to foster diversity and inclusion within the organization?
So we're a very small company when it comes to staff, but our impact is very large. And so within our own organization, we encourage everyone to bring themselves to work. We work virtually so that we can hire the best people wherever they are instead of forcing people to move to where we are because we travel frequently. Our facilitators are in different places year round. We run workshops and so forth at conferences. So we travel in large groups. We've got one coming up in September where we're headed to Las Vegas for a women's leadership conference, a 2-day conference. I've got 11 people on the ground at that event delivering 26 workshops. So when it comes to inclusion, our mindset is that we hire the best person, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, based on who they are and what they're able to deliver. And we give everyone the same opportunity. And so we have young mothers, we have people who are at the end of their careers or are, looking to maybe slow down a little bit. We have different genders, we have different races. That doesn't matter to any of us because the point is, and I don't say it doesn't matter, what I say is that we don't look at it that way. We focus on bringing ourselves and our best work forward, and we challenge each other every day to make sure that we're all listening to each other's perspectives.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that is some setting new standards in diversity and inclusion. So that's fantastic. We'll talk and discuss about a specific initiative or project that you've led, which has had a significant impact on the company or maybe the industry.
So there's a couple of things that we've done in the last 5 years since I've been CEO. First off, we acquired an organization called Leading Women, which is a gender-focused women's leadership development organization. And we acquired them specifically for the research that they've done and the intellectual property that they've created around women in leadership. That has allowed us to be able to deliver both the focus on leadership development as an organization and also on addressing the cultural challenges that organizations have that prevent inclusion, that prevent them from bringing all different perspectives into leadership. And so that acquisition was our way of balancing our leadership development and our cultural work. The result of that enabled us to create research that we have focused on called Cultural Dynamics in the Workplace, which was released in, I want to say 2021. So about 2 years in, we released this research around what it truly takes for organizations to build cultures of inclusion. And that has driven us to create something called an M6 model. And that M6 model is all about the 6 different ways in which organizations need to address how they want to embrace their 100% of their talent, whether they're at senior leadership or entry level. And it focuses on things like assessing the way the culture is, helping the executive team understand how to approach this topic, because in most cases, many senior leaders are nervous. They're not sure what to say or what to do. And so we help them recognize that it really is all about mindsets. And it's all about recognizing that as leaders, we tend to move very quickly. We tend to go with what works. And we know that if we give it to this person, we don't have to worry about it. The challenge there is when we consistently go with knee-jerk reactions, we're preventing the opportunities that could come from broader thinking or from new perspectives. And so over the course of the last 5 years, we've been able to really hone in and dig in to help organizations figure out, so what is it about us that makes us great? And where do we have more work that we need to do? So we've done the research, we've developed the programming, we've created the assessments around culture, and then we've dug even further into leadership in 2024 and on. And what does that really mean? Because there's been a dynamic shift in the expectations of boards of directors and senior leaders as to what it means to be a leader today versus back when, I was back in the 90s or back in the 2000s. And so the work that we've done is really try to help evolve that knowledge so that we can bring it forward to our clients to recognize what small mindset shifts they need to make in order to become even better performing.
Oh, that's superb. And because you talked about leading women, we'll talk about a little bit more about leading now. So, if you would just tell us the history about leading now, its acquisition story, its purpose, the leadership, and also specifically, about the passion and purpose that you have for women and helping them to, fully raise
Sure.
to their maximum
Sure.
potential.
Okay. So Leading Now is the global organization that oversees multiple divisions. Leading Women is one of the acquired divisions that's about women's leadership development and the focus on bringing more women into leadership with a goal of some kind of gender parity at some point, right, down the line. I just read a research paper that just came out from Deloitte, and they're talking about women not being in a gender parity in leadership until the year 2111. That's like almost 100 years from now. And so that division of our organization says, yeah, that's not good enough. And so our focus when it comes to that was the acquisition that created our entire gender focus division of the organization. And with that is a group called the Gender Dynamics Institute, which is a research-based, again, focused specifically on gender dynamics in the workplace. And so that entire group spends its time researching and learning what are the challenges that women face in the workplace. How can we help them overcome the barriers that we know that are in place in order to get those percentages of women in leadership much higher. The strategies around that enable us to work with corporations globally to help them develop future women leaders. And a part of that involves us offering leadership development workshops to women's leadership organizations. And together with them, we create programming specific to their industry. So whether it's the energy industry or the hospitality industry or the sports and events industry. We work together with them to create the right programming to help them develop women across their membership. So we're reaching thousands and thousands of women each year, much more than we could as the organization that we are. So that's part of the strategic shift of what we've done since that acquisition. And then for leading now as that sort of parent company, our focus has been both leadership development for both executives and how to be more inclusive, along with emerging leaders on how to become those executives. And then on the flip side, it's about culture. And it's how do we help existing leaders and senior leadership create the culture they want internally in order to create that fertile ground for everyone to have opportunities.
Oh, that's fabulous. And because we talked previously about inclusion and diversity, so my next question aligns with it, that how do you sort of stay ahead of the competition, or how do you have that top edge in terms of with your other competitors in terms of the inclusion and diversity aspect?
So, what we found mostly, what makes us different and what allows us to sort of lead the pack, is that there's a combination of unique elements within our organization. One, we do our own research. Many inclusion and diversity organizations don't actually do their own research. So they read what's out there, which we do as well. They may create programming that they think is appropriate. But when you add the layer of us being a global organization and that we have global perspectives and we have people in different countries who are helping us influence not only our research and our programming, but are working with clients on a global nature, we get input and feedback from Finland, from Germany, from um, Latin America, from Asia, and from other countries other than the US. The third thing is when you combine the research about what really is the problem, the global perspective to help solve it, and then you utilize the fact that we are business people, taking that knowledge and then creating the solutions to help businesses achieve the goals that they're seeking, there's no one else out there who has that combination. And so, are there a lot of organizations out there doing D&I work or leadership development? Absolutely. Do they have that combination? No. So it makes us a little bit unique in the workforce.
Oh, that's amazing. So, as a woman leader and entrepreneur, what is that one piece of advice that you'd like to give to other aspiring women leaders who look up to you for leadership roles?
Great question. I could probably talk for about 5 hours on that question alone, but here's what I'm going to say. Years ago, there was a CEO who I looked up to that I worked for within the organization who helped me and promoted me twice into the role of a GM. And looking back now, I never realized how much he was mentoring me because in 2010 to 2016, people didn't talk about mentoring the way they talk about it today, right? It wasn't something that someone would walk and say, I'm going to give you a mentoring moment. But here's what I learned. I used to sit in these financial meetings every month. And again, the only woman in the room, 20 or so other folks in there. And we would go over the privately held company. We would go over the financials. Where are we? How are we doing towards our goals? Ultimately, recognizing that the better goals we reach, the better we're all compensated, right? But because of the role I had in the middle of a process of creating ideas, creating products, engineering them, creating all the things that needed to go to market, and then handing it off to manufacturing and distribution and supply chain. When you're in there, you don't want to be the group that holds up the success of the company. So I'd ask a lot of questions. And sometimes I'd get grief for asking a question because it would mean someone would have had to thought of the answer. And no one liked to be put on the spot. And I wasn't trying to be a jerk about it, but I had to know the answer in order to be successful in supporting the organization. And so after one of those very challenging meetings, I was in my office and the CEO stops by and he pokes his head in my door and he says, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, they were kind of hard on you in that meeting." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm just trying to make sure we don't make a mistake." And he looked at me and he said, "Don't stop asking questions." And so that's my advice to every single woman. If you don't know the answer, ask a question. If you're unclear about what's expected of you, ask the question. If you want to learn more, and you should want to learn more about the business, ask the question and don't stop, because we should all have a learning mindset and no one has all the answers. So, my best advice, don't stop asking questions.
That's so well said, and you're absolutely right that everyone should always be on the learning curve because the
Yeah.
learning should never stop. That's absolutely great advice there. So, this brings me to the last question. What's next for you, and are you excited with the new projects and goals that you have, and what's coming up in this current year?
Thank you. Yes. So, yeah, I'm very excited about where we are as an organization. I'm very passionate about what I do, which makes it easy to get out of bed every day, right? And give 100 and however many percent, focusing on how do we as an organization continue to make sure that we're helping organizations and individuals become the best leaders in their industry and in their career. And so we've got a couple of things. We've got some research that's coming out in about 2 months that's focused specifically on what it takes for women to get from senior manager and maybe director level. What does it take to get to the next step? Because when you look at the research and when you look at all the data that's out there, you'll see there's like two cliffs within the trajectory of women's careers, and where they may be, practically 50% of the workforce being hired at entry level to get to manager, less women get there. We have programming for that. Then the next part is, how do I get to be an executive? How do I get to that VP title? And so the research that's coming out focuses specifically on that area. What are the 9 critical differentiators you need to have and excel at and demonstrate in order to be seen as an executive level future leader, right? And so I'm really excited about that research. We know that there's been progress getting women into management. The problem is getting them out of management. And so our focus over the last 2 years has been, how do we, one, help women get out of management into senior leadership? And how do we help companies create the environment that embraces that? So lots to come this fall. I'm very excited about it. And I really look forward to what comes next. I'm not sure what that's going to be. So, but in the meantime, we go out there every day doing everything we can to create a more balanced leadership population.
Well, that's such an ambitious future, and I wish you all the best to achieve it as well. So, Kelly, this brings us to the end of the interview, but is there anything that you'd like to add?
At this point, no, it's just that when I have an opportunity to talk to women in the workforce, the goal I always say to them is, think about where you want to go and then really ask the questions. What is it going to take to get there? What do I need to know? What do I need to learn? Who can I ask to help me learn that? And always, always, always stay focused on the big picture of what your organization does, because that will inform way more what you need to focus on than just one role.
Oh, that is spectacular. And this has been an absolutely lovely and insightful conversation. And you are an beacon of inspiration for millions of women in leadership. And there are so many key takeaways that you have inspired me also during the interview. So thank you so much for your, prestigious time. And I wish you all the best for your
Thank you.
future with your company. And
Thank you so
I
much.
hope that, you grow with leaps and bounds as well. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for your time and have a great day ahead.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Have a lovely day.
Yes, thank you so much, Kelly. Bye.